You're listening to the AntPod Interview Edition featuring Lights, Camera, Ants.
Thank you for the introduction, Lexi, and hello and welcome to the AntPod. Today we're talking with Lights, Camera, Ants, also known as Jeremiah. And before we start, I want to say that this podcast can also be heard as an audio version only. Link will be shown in the description. So, Jeremiah, I must say, it's a name I'm not used to pronouncing, but you have a very impressive following, which we are going to talk about in a second. But hello and welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm doing all right. Again, woke up 5:30 this morning, really early. Just wanted to get everything done beforehand and have enough time to go ahead and participate in this podcast here.
Yeah, I must say it's an honor to have you. Anything special going on with your day-to-day business?
Nothing too special. Not yet, but it's just casual ant keeping and filming. Just trying to get better at everything that I'm doing. Learning different techniques, doing research on both ants and social media. And as well as possibly thinking of going to college. We'll see. But yeah, everything else pretty simple. Just normal life, normal. I guess normal
casual.
human things, right? Yeah.
The casual decisions you have to take when you're in America. Of course, it's a little bit different in Europe. We don't really get a bill or anything for doing college. But like I said before, you have a very impressive following with around 3.2 million TikTok followers, 120,000 Instagram followers, and around 180,000 YouTube subscribers combined. I must say you've really skyrocketed, and you've even met Ants Canada and done a video on his channel. And I must say, as a guy who were equal to you only 2 years ago, where you had 700 subscribers or something, and I had 400. Yeah, I'm really jealous of what you've done with everything. But I want to get a little bit of inside knowledge, because back then, last time we met, you had around 1,000 followers combined all over your social media accounts. What happened?
So let's see. I guess we'll start when things got interesting, right? So it was 2020. Everyone's locked in their house. It's 2020. I'm home. And so it's pretty much the rest of the world, right? And so it was me, Ender Ants, and Ants Manitoba. And so we all just got on this one phone call, and we were like, all right, what are we gonna do? We want to spread ant keeping. And so we were like, you know what? TikTok's popping off. Let's hop on TikTok. And so we did. It was slow at the beginning, for most of us, but then I think my fifth or sixth video in that I posted, it got a couple 100,000 views, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I gained the what do you call it? The return on that. The amount of followers I got for that amount of views is really good. It was I got 12,000, 13,000 from that initial video, which was really awesome. But then things slowed down for me for a while, and I at one point I completely quit TikTok and didn't post on there for at least a couple of months. Meanwhile, while I quit and everything, Ender Ants and Ants Manitoba, they were blowing up. They had reached 100,000 followers on TikTok. And Ants Canada also was on there at one point, and I think he still is. And he was doing his thing as well. It was mainly just clips or re-narrated stories of his old videos. But I had completely quit TikTok for two months, the majority of the summer really. And then it wasn't until Ender Ants and Ants Manitoba started to slow down and post less and less and completely get off the app that I had gotten back on and decided to give it another go. And that's when, soon after, that's when I started to find a lot of success.
Yeah, I remembered back then when you also all three had kind of a talk of a podcast and different ideas. And you were really the dream team back then. Of course, sadly, we don't see much from Ants Manitoba or Ender Ants nowadays, but well, hopefully they will return. I mean, I think Ants Manitoba, he's worked on a bit of different projects now. But I feel like I'm in the kind of state where I had a few really viral videos getting millions of views, and I've I'm around 70K now, but it's definitely
Oh,
slowed
that's
down a lot.
awesome.
Oh yeah. I'm so happy for everything. I mean, it's crazy. And then we have hit this slow bump with 70K and 1,000 views per video. But yeah, I think I need to look a little bit into what I'm doing with my videos, with the TikToks at least. But yeah,
Mhm.
I definitely see what you mean with it. You just get such a rush when you get the big numbers. It's yeah, it's
Yeah,
very.
initially, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut
Oh
you
yeah, no,
off.
go ahead.
Yeah, initially you get that like huge dopamine hit, and you're like, all right, that I just got 100,000 views from that. Let me do it again and again, and you sort of get this like mental high from it at first, and then eventually your body you get used to it. You're like, okay, 100,000 views, or okay, 10,000 views, and you sort of lose the ability to see how big those numbers are. But when you sit back down and you humble yourself, and when I say yourself, I'm referring to me. When I sit down and look back, and I'm like, no, every view that I get, like that's a literal person taking the time to watch the video. And I really appreciate every time that I see even a number one goes up, or second view, third view. Like it's just, I have great gratitude for it, for every single follower that I have, for every view that I get.
Yeah, and I think that's very important. Or it's not very important to have to be thankful for everyone, but I think it's very important to don't really go into hundreds of millions of views, but appreciate even the small views, because
Hmm.
if you want the high all the time, it will be very hard if you don't get that high all the time. So I've also, when everything goes well, I'm really happy for everything that goes well. But when things go bad, if I have 3 videos with 1,000 views, I can still say, okay, well, I'm thankful for this video got 500 views more than the others, and I appreciated that, even though it's not at all the same scale as when you have millions of views. Um, but I want to ask this because I think it's a thing a lot of people have been thinking about. At least I've been thinking about it a few times, because you have your YouTube channel, you have your Instagram, you have your TikToks. Is this a full-time job, or is it just a side hustle, a hobby?
It's more so just a hobby. I'm not making enough to have it a full-time job. I'm blessed to have parents that sort of let me stay in the house and film. So like, I mean, I graduated high school last year, and so now I'm here a year later, and now starting to think about college. Now starting to think about maybe getting a side job, whether it's part-time or full-time. We'll see. It just depends on how much time college takes away from me. Because I'm sort of gonna have to be juggling a bunch of things, right? I want to continue to grow the YouTube or the social media and business, right? But at the same time, I gotta focus on college whenever that time arrives, and so it's like I'm gonna be juggling a few things. So let's say I end up going to college, I might not be able to get a job because that's gonna take time away from college, and it's gonna take time away from making videos and such. But yeah, I mean, that's just where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and of course, college, at least in United, again, here in Denmark, we live near college, but you,
Hmm.
of course, often move towards the college, and it's going to be a totally different thing to move your other colony over
Oh
to your.
yeah, that's
uh,
that's if I move. I might just do a community college. That's what I'm thinking of doing.
okay,
Something local. Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah, I'm no college expert, so yeah, but yeah, I'm saying yeah a lot. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm sorry. Um,
No, you're good.
it's just I'm very curious because you have done a lot of TikToks and you kind of started on YouTube Shorts again as well, and
Hmm.
now you have moved to a little bit of a longer format content on your channel as well. What kind of thoughts do you have around all of these different social medias? Is there a special goal in mind, or are you trying to just be a little bit all over?
So I'm trying to expand, right? I'm trying to diversify because not everyone's on YouTube, not everyone's on TikTok, not everyone's on Facebook, right? So you gotta diversify your stuff. So I'm posting on every single platform that I feel that will have an audience for me, right? So Facebook, right? I initially didn't think about it at all, and then I started to think about it a little bit more. I'm like, my parents are always on Facebook. My grandparents are always on Facebook. There's people watching videos on Facebook, so why not post there, right? Facebook has Reels, so I was like, perfect opportunity. Go ahead, start doing that. And then I ended up doing it on my profile instead of a page at first, and so I have like 80 something thousand followers on a profile that I don't even post anymore, right? So I made a separate page, and I'm at like 10,000 on there right now. I got to put more effort into it though, and figure because every platform is different. You gotta, and I personally don't do it, but I feel like I should. You gotta adjust the videos for the platform that you're posting on, because sometimes the videos will perform well throughout every single platform, but sometimes you have to adjust it. Maybe it has to be shorter, maybe it has to be a little longer per platform. It just depends on how the algorithm changes that month and what that platform's like main, what would you call it, what they want more of. What do they want? More watch time? Do they want more
Engagement.
engagement in comments? Yeah, so it's like it's a bunch of things that you got to look at, a bunch of variables. But as you like do research into it and find people on YouTube, there's always people on YouTube giving you updates on what changes are coming to each platform and stuff. So you take little mental notes on that, and you're like, okay, what can I change? You look at your analytics. How do I increase watch time, sort of thing. So you just look back at your old videos and cut out things that make your videos do better or worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely. I have seen the same thing. Videos will do very well on TikTok, not do well on Instagram, and do averagely on YouTube Shorts. It's very different across platforms, and I'm also a little bit too lazy part of everything. But you are, of course, an Antkeeper, and we have a ton of Antkeeping questions we are also going to go into. But the last question about you, not as an Antkeeper, is your dream job to be an Antkeeper, or do you have other plans with maybe being a filmmaker or social media something? Or what's your dream job?
I love doing what I do now with the ants. It would be amazing to be able to do this full time. I mean, currently that's all I'm doing, but it'd be amazing to be able to have this as a reliable income. To be able to mess around with the ants, doing everything that I love. I love making videos and I love ant keeping. You mash the two together and you got the perfect dream job, right? So it's like I love it. But as of now, I'm gonna have to start taking time away from it and putting it into something else, whether it's college or another job. That way I can. Can you hear me still?
Yeah. You're
okay,
good.
yeah. All the screens on my computer just like shut off for whatever reason. But that's what I plan on doing. If I can get it to that point where I'm doing this full time every single day, I'd be the happiest man alive.
Yeah, as a content creator, I must agree, it's definitely a dream to both have a hobby and also have a job of it. Although it's also advised by some people not to do it the same because it will be hard to make the difference between when it's hobby and when it's job. But I agree, it's definitely good to also be looking for plan B, because 15 years down the line, it may be good to have some other ideas. But of course, you're an Antkeeper, and we have a bunch of viewer questions. And I think the best question to ask is always, what was your first colony and how did they manage? Because I feel like a lot of people are very nervous with their first colony and they may not do well. I know mine did not do too well, but yeah, what was your first colony and how they manage?
All right. So before I answer this, first colony as in first queen that managed to raise workers, or like first queen that I caught?
Well, let's say both.
Okay, so the first queen I caught was a fire ant queen, and well, honestly, she didn't live she lived a long time, I guess, and then I just gave her to a friend, and didn't hear back. I think that friend just released the queen back into the wild, wherever we found it, and then that was the end of that. The first year of ant keeping was really a bust. I didn't really catch all that many. I maybe caught one Monomorium colony, and then maybe 2 Phaedoli queens at the end of the year. But that was really it. I didn't really get anything from that year, from the first year. Second year, it was one Carpenter ant queen, like one of the smaller ones that we have. And so she landed on my mom's car. I asked her if I could get it, because beforehand, my dad wasn't really a fan of me ant keeping, but he had deployed to where did he go? I can't even remember. He went overseas, right, for the military, and he wasn't there to say no to ant keeping, but my mom was all for it or whatever. And so she said, yeah, I can go catch it. So I grabbed a straw. We had like this straw that was like how it is normally. It's wrapped in paper. So I took the straw out the paper and then captured the queen ant and then plugged 2 ends of the straw with the paper that the straw was wrapped around with. Brought her home, put her in a test tube setup, and then that was my first queen. But she wouldn't be the last because soon after that, like I caught 3 more carpenter ant queens and then merged them. And this wasn't something that like it was, again, it's my second year of ant keeping. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I know that some can be polygynous. So I merge them, and what do you know? It works out. I don't know how it happened, but they didn't attack each other. And I think that's because when I moved them together, I didn't put one queen into like a tube with another queen that's already been in that tube for a while. So I put them into a totally new setup. So they were confused out of their minds, and they somehow just got along with each other. Moved in to this one. What was it? Like, it was an acrylic nest that I had them in. And dude, I got them to about like 80 workers, I think. But because I didn't hibernate them, they sort of crashed. They were a temperate species. And so after not hibernating them for like a year or two, the queens started to die off. Then workers started to die off, and it just wasn't really good. There was less brood production, and so I just released them. But when I released them, it was towards the end of the year, so it was already getting cold. I didn't really have a nest set up, and so I'm pretty sure they just died after that. But that was the first ever successful colony. It was a beautiful colony. It was awesome.
I mean, I'm impressed you managed to catch them in a straw. That's one story, but it's definitely something. It's definitely something for all of those new ant keepers to think about out there, because I often say hibernation is very serious, and they say, no, they are fine, they survived this year. Hibernation really hits when the colony doesn't get that old. If you hibernate a colony, they can live for many years. If you don't hibernate a colony, the queens can get confused. They may not lay eggs, and it make us completely confuse their life cycle. And that's why I just recommend do the hibernation. It's
I think hibernation is very important too. Sometimes species can skip through it, but there are most species, and I find out a lot. Campodonatus is very heavy with it. Like if you don't hibernate the temperate carpenter ant species, a lot of the times the year after or 2 years after, they will completely crash. Either the queen dies or she just stops laying eggs when she's supposed to be laying eggs. And then when you try to hibernate them, you're hibernating them during the summer, so they're all mixed up, and they don't know what's going on. You take them out during the winter, and it's all messed up. So, yes, hibernate your ants. It's probably the best.
Yeah, it's also important to note that even if your room decreases by a few degrees, you don't necessarily feel it, but the ants take it as a trigger of preparation to hibernation. Definitely. So even though you say no, they are in a hot room. It's 19 degrees in the summer. It was 25. It's a little bit colder. It's enough to trigger the response. But do you have a favorite ant species or a dream species?
So favorite ant species that I keep currently, it's between the Atta and the Phaedolia.
All right.
And then my dream species would probably be, it's between some Myrmecia species or Dacetin, dude. Oh my gosh, Dacetin are awesome, but they're in South America. I can't have those guys here.
And keeping noob right here, Dacetin. What's that?
Oh my. Dude, they look like a Pokemon, bro. I'm telling you. If you like Daceton, something like that. I might have spelled it wrong. I don't know. Dude, they look crazy. They're like an arboreal trapjaw that has soldiers.
Like I have to look that up.
They're bright orange in color, and I think the soldiers, maybe even the workers too. I can't recall, but I think with the shape of their heads, so they live high up in trees. Right, so they're not all that easy to access, which is why they're so expensive too. And so they live high up in trees. So if like a soldier or worker falls off the tree, they can use the shape of their head, similar to like some species of cephalotes, to just glide back to the tree, land on it, and then crawl back up. So really, really cool species.
Yeah, it's Casey also just said that it's the ants with the heart-shaped head thing, and I think I know what they look super mean if I'm recalling the right ants.
Oh my gosh, yeah, dude, they're really cool species.
Yeah, of course, you are locked down to the state laws regarding ant keeping.
Yeah. United States, but dude, I wish the laws were more relaxed here. But too bad we rely heavily on agriculture.
Yeah, here in Europe, there's not really any rules for ants. I mean, it's starting to come now with you can't get Solenopsis geminata and stuff like that. It's starting to be illegal,
Yeah.
But I don't know who checks it because I got leaf cutters in and I tried to Google, can you get leaf cutters? Can you get exotic ants? There was just no response. So it's
Yeah. You
very
guys, at least
relaxed.
for now, have it easy. So that's good. That's good. You guys have pretty much anything over there. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem is can they survive the shipping? That's kind of the struggle. But
Yeah. You
that
got,
is,
yeah, you're right. You got to order a bunch and then hope at least a couple make it.
yeah, I mean, it's a privilege, and I know for a fact that Casey, he would much rather take that risk, because there are so many species he wants that's just hard to get. Like Novomessor cockerelli lives in the state next door,
Oh yeah.
but he can't get them.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. Good thing you can always move later in life, right? Nah, kidding.
Oh, of course. Yeah. No, definitely. I'd move. Yeah. No, it just
All right.
depends. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was just yeah, go ahead. It depends on what.
No, just depends on how it goes. If I'm doing well and I find either a state or a different country that has more relaxed ant laws, then I may or may not move there. Just depends. Like if I can get permits here, then there's no real need to move. But if not, then I'm gonna try and find somewhere where I can keep Dacetin legally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that's a clever mindset. I mean, I've also thought some way of if this was turning out to be a real thing for me to move to the UK, because that's where everything European ant keeping really goes down with many stores and many everything. There's no Danish ant stores at the moment, so it's not really. And then we have all of these import fees and everything. But back to you. I want to hear, again, for all of those rookies out there, what is your biggest mistake or regret since you have started ant keeping?
I think, and I don't do it now anymore, but rushing ants. Like when I first started, I'd always check on my queen ant every single day, and it was fun until you notice that the queen started eating her eggs, and then it's like, oh wait, I should have just let her be. I really messed this up. So like, don't check on your queen ants all the time, and don't rush them into a new nest. Another thing I did was the moment they get a worker, I'm like, all right, time to move them to a formicarium that's like way too big for them. And that was another mistake that I made a lot of the times. But now I sort of I know what species grow at what rates, and so I know when I can move them. Let's say with Phaedolia rhea, for example, I can give them a bunch of space, and I know that over the course of a month they'll grow into that and be ready for something new. But with the case of carpenter ants, right, you'd have to like give them something that's just slightly bigger because carpenter ants oftentimes grow slow. So yeah, don't rush your ants and don't check on the queens too often.
Oh, that is very clever words. I usually say that the bigger the colony gets, the more you can interact with them. So when it's just a queen, pretty much no interaction. When you have a few workers, you can look at them, start to feed them. And as they grow, I personally take the covers off and let them get used to the light and just have them and look at them and not play with them, but interact with them a lot more. But it takes a good time for the base of the queen to settle down and complete her founding. So do you have a certain mistake you have done? Because this sounds like a regret you have done, but do you have like a certain time where you did a big mistake or something?
I think it was, well, one, not hibernating that carpenter ant colony, dude. Imagine how big they would have been. Would have been amazing. But aside from that, it was mainly just checking on a bunch of queen ants in the early stages. There's this one species of harvester ant along the east side of the U.S. and dude, it's the only harvester ant species in the U.S. that has soldiers, and only one of two in regards to Pogoed and Rimmericks harvester ants. It's only one of two that has the soldier caste, and so it's a really cool species. However, the queens are really sensitive, and so if you check on them too often, dude, they're gonna eat their eggs, and oftentimes they'll just start pulling at the cotton, and they won't stop even if you just cover them and put them away. And it also depends on the queen, right? Every queen ant acts differently, but the majority of them that I've kept before, they are just way too sensitive, and the moment you disrupt them, it's almost game over. There's no real coming back from them. Maybe unless you brood boost them, but even then, sometimes they will just completely ignore it and just want to escape and do whatever. You know, they're an interesting species, really cool, but also really sensitive.
Yeah, there are some ants that are just meant to be in nature, just too hard to capture in captivity.
Mhm.
But how long do you use on ants on a weekly basis? I mean, both with and without social media. How long do you?
How long
How
do
long?
I? How long? What do you mean?
Yeah, like I mean, I'm in my ant room. I feed my ants, then I record them, then I edit videos. So I spend around 2 hours or something on the ants every day, but only around 1 hour per week to like feed and maintenance. So if you were to split that up, do you have like an approximate time?
Oh, dude, my ant room is my bedroom, and so I'm with the ants day and night. It's no matter what, I'm always checking on them, making sure they have enough food and water. Especially the bigger colonies because they run out of food and water the fastest. It's it's getting pretty hectic with some of the colonies that I have, but yeah, every single day I'm messing with the ants, making sure they have water, making sure they got food. If they need to be moved, then I'll move them. And in regards to filming, if I need to clean their glass, then I'll clean the glass to the ant farm. And so it's it's pretty much a daily task for me to be messing with my ants. There's only certain times where I won't interact with them, right? And that's let's say I'm away for the weekend, or if I'm away for a week. In regards to an event like Animal Con, for example, I was away for a week, but when I came back, everything was fine because I had watered and fed all the ants beforehand, and so when I came back, everything was normal. No one had escaped. It was all good. But aside from that, I'm with my ants pretty much every single day of the week.
It sounds like you really have a good relationship with them. I know sometimes if I'm busy, it becomes a little bit more of a hassle and a job to do all of this cleaning. Do you ever feel that?
Yeah, my only the only thing I hate about ant keeping is probably the cleaning, right? Thankfully, I got this little mini vacuum that I attached a tube to that I can just suck up all the dead roaches, or like the cocoon casings. Makes my job of removing the trash a whole lot easier. And with the ADA, I gave them a little cube with a hole drilled into it, a little container with a hole drilled into it, and then they use that as their trash can. So all I do is take that cube, dump it out, and then put it back in there, and then they'll continue using it as a trash can, and it's actually really cool. So I don't know if your colony does this as well, but when I raised mine, it was just two queens and like 70 workers when I got them. So I had them, but they had like this little side. They had, it was almost like a 3 chamber setup where they would go out to forage leaves on one, grow the fungus, and then get rid of the fungus in another chamber. And so that chamber was a little small cube, maybe like, let's see, you're in metric, so like
I can translate.
yeah, like so like 4 centimeters, right? For like just 4 centimeters cube. So just a cube like that. Drill the hole into it, and they would put their trash in there. And so I did that, and I carried that container with them to their bigger nests. So as they grew, they still had that same container that they used as a trash can. So the hole where they put the trash in is pointing upwards. So all they do is they just climb in, they put the trash, and then they leave. And they're really cool. The only thing I really have to do, like the hardest part, is maybe just get in that little cube without getting bit. But all the trash is literally in one area, nowhere else. So it's pretty easy in regards to the leafcutter ants. But everyone else, I gotta use the vacuum to suck up all the trash. And that's the only thing I don't like about ants. The trash and cleaning nests. Some nests like acrylic nests where you got like 1,000 different layers to like disassemble, or like 3D printed nests where you sort of have to like really scrub to get it out of the little grooves in some 3D prints. That's aside from that, I love ant keeping. It's amazing. It's just the cleaning that like I don't know. I'm not all that for the cleaning.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I had a massive mite problem because I got a little bit too lazy. So now I'm not that lazy. Saying that, once a colony moves out, I need to clean the nest before reusing it, and I put it in a box of other nests I haven't cleaned. And the box just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And once every 2 or 3 months, I use like 5 hours a day, 5 hours one day, and just cleans everything. And I hate it, but I always love when it's done because then that pile of not cleanness is just gone. And then when the colony starts moving, it slowly goes back. But yeah, cleaning is definitely the worst part of Vancouver in my head. But how many colonies do you have to clean? How many colonies do you clean?
I think I have. I don't know. I can't tell you, Alex. I think it's probably just shy of 20 colonies as of now. It usually, like during the winter, I might lose a queen or something that I had caught later in the year. So it fluctuates, but just shy of 20 as of now.
And what would the biggest and the smallest colony then be?
Biggest colony? Let's see. I'm pretty sure it's the Ada at this point. And then the smallest, which technically is not a colony, it's just a queen, and it's just a little acrobat queen that I'd caught towards the end of the year. I don't even know I think I know what species it is, but I completely forgot. But it's one of the smaller species of acrobat ants. Like the colonies don't get all that big. So like they usually they almost nest like acorn ants, like just in nuts and very small colonies, maybe a few hundred workers, but that's really it. And that's my smallest colony. It's just a queen with some brood.
Yeah. It's you have to start somewhere, and I definitely agree. You have an Ada with 2 queens. I mean, that's just.
Oh yeah.
That's.
I plan on.
How big is that setup now?
So it's let's see, it's a 10 by 10 by 10 inches.
I'll translate.
And so it's 10 by 10 by 10 container, and they filled it maybe 1/4 of the way, give or take, right now. And that's what I had just moved them into. But Ada texana, I will tell you, they are the slowest growing Ada ever. It's painfully slow. In fact, it's but if you're just, I guess, first getting into leafcutter ants, right, and you don't want like a super fast growing ant species, they're a mix between, I guess they grow similar to Acromyrmex in regards to speed, somewhat, or at least from what I've seen. And it's, I don't know, they're just the slowest growing Ada. I won't even even with 2 queens, an Ada mexicana colony with 1 queen can still like surpass it in like a year. It's they're quite slow. So I might, and this just depends on if I get more queens this year. But if I end up getting like 20 plus Ada queens or something like that, then I will definitely sort of brood boost them, and then maybe give the other colony away or something, or give them to a zoo or whatever, and just keep the 20 queen Ada colony.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's so hard for me to think of 2 queens because of course I have the Mexicana, and they are just nuts. It's I mean, that 1 queen is just a beast. And I think now where we are at the leafcutter chat, you of course have a leafcutter queen named Bertha. Or at least last time I saw her, she was still doing very weirdly. Well, who is Bertha, and what's the story around her?
All right, I'm gonna say this now. I haven't publicized it just yet because I didn't know how to break the news. Bertha's gone. She kind of yeah. I felt like it was time, and so I just let I gave them leaves one last time, let all the workers out, because she wasn't producing workers of her own. She only produced workers like a couple times, but it was just onesies, twosies, right? Like it wasn't even, she was the weirdest queen. And it was, I don't know what the deal was with her. When I got her, she had around 50, was it 50 workers? I can't even remember. I'll have to look back at the videos, but when I got her, she had some workers, right? But I don't think those workers were hers, because prior to that, she was with another queen. So it was initially a 2 queen setup, but they died, or that other queen died before I even had the chance to receive that queen, to receive Bertha. And so it was just Bertha, some workers, but those workers weren't her. When I first got her, dude, she was laying so many eggs, but those eggs never seemed to hatch. And so it stood like that for like maybe a month. And when the person that sold me Bertha, or not sold me, but the person who gave me Bertha when I told him about it, he was like, "Yeah, that is really weird." So he sent me Tick and Tack, and so got Tick and Tack. I kept Bertha just in case something miraculous happened, and Bertha just happened to start laying eggs that will actually hatch, but that never seemed to happen. It was just one or two instances where like one of her eggs or two of her eggs would hatch, and then she'll get like a regular like worker pupa. But there was also instances where they produce like these little micro drones, like these tiny male ants, and I've seen it both in Tick and Tack's enclosure and in Bertha's, but they only managed to stay in the pupa form, and then they were thrown out into the trash afterwards, or they were just recycled, like they were eaten after they pupated, and it was really interesting. But yeah, Bertha lived way longer than she would have in the wild for sure, because I don't know what was her deal, but she was a really cool queen ant, and because she didn't like grow all that much, because her colony didn't grow all that much, it made it a lot easier to sort of film with the top open, because I had her in a little acrylic setup with it was all scratched up and stuff, because acrylic scratches really easily. But yeah, it was really easy to be able to like film her, and occasionally I would pick her up. And the only reason I picked her up and not really Tick and Tack and like held her in my hand was because she was essentially, and yeah, yeah, essentially broken. She was infertile minus like one or two workers, and so it wasn't. I didn't feel like I was disrupting anything, right? She was basically living off of brood boosting at this point. She was on life support, and so I just had her there, and I would film her and just sort of like show people Bertha on my hand or whatever, or show me taking out the trash from Bertha's enclosure. But then eventually I was like, you know what? I'm dragging this out way too long. And so I gave her leaves one last time. Her workers eventually just died off, and then all the fungus disappeared, and then she sort of like dehydrated and died. I still have her. I kind of want to have her in resin, like epoxy resin, but I don't know how to do that. I don't want to do it. I'd rather have a professional do it. So if I can find someone who knows how to do that, I'll have them make like a little bracelet or necklace with Bertha like taxidermied inside a piece of what would you, I had the name and I completely forgot what it was called, but epoxy resin, and that's probably what I'll do. But yeah, no, Bertha's gone, but Tick and Tack are still, they're doing their thing. They're alive.
Rest in peace to Bertha. I must say, I never believed she was fertile either. When I just looked at her, I was just like, oh, it's just a infertile queen you're keeping. But I mean, the thing is, you could see her. I mean, I see my queen. I love the names, by the way. I see my queens. I've seen her for the first time this past week in half a year. I just haven't seen her because she lives in the fungi. And I always say like, oh, I have this huge queen, and people are like, can you show her? Well, no, but she's big. So I mean, it was cool that, me, right? Yeah, so it was cool that you could also always see her at your place, and of course also when you like compared to Campanota's queens to her size. And
I love that too, because it gave people a sense of, the people that keep ants at least, it gave them a sense of just how big leafcutter ant queens are. Like when I first got my hands on leafcutter ant queens, I couldn't comprehend how big they were. They were huge. I was like, what this is an ant? And indeed it was. I was just really shocked at how big these queens were. But there are obviously bigger queens and bigger ants. So it'd be really neat to like get that feeling again, because like once you see that big ant for the first time and you've had it for a little while, your eyes sort of get used to it. You're like, okay, that's a big ant, but I've seen that before. But I'm sure that whenever I see Myrmecia for the first time in my life, I'm gonna go insane. I'm gonna be like, there's no way ants are this big. Like I'm gonna geek out over some Australian ants.
Yeah, gotta get some Brenavata and just look at them. The biggest, I think they're the biggest Myrmecia species. But yeah, I remembered when I got my Acromyrmex, I opened it and I was like, I mean, they're cool. I thought she was bigger, and then when I got my Ada, I was just like, whoa, okay, this is a beast.
Dude, they're units, bro. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I've also just seen the videos around social media. So, you've probably seen as well the one. I don't know if it's your video, but the video is like 10, 20 other queens just all running around together. After
No,
someone had
I don't have 10 to 20. I don't think I ever recorded that. But go ahead. I'm
no
sorry.
no.
I cut you off.
Oh yeah, it's a video of someone who I guess they were capturing to sell them or something. But there was just 20 of these queens just walking around on top of each other. It was just insane video
Yeah,
to look at.
dude. Oh, their nuptial flights are crazy.
I'm just thinking glaciers. When you have flying ants in Denmark, it's small glaciers. Over in the United States, it's just
Dude,
monsters flying
they
around.
sound like beetles flying, like giant helicopters, just flying in the middle of the night. Yeah.
Hi, it's Succeed from Pour More Art. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ant Pod, and please visit my ant and spider shop at www.pourmoreart.ca. We're a Canadian business shipping ant and spider keeping supplies worldwide, specializing in test tube accessories and a variety of hybrid formicaria, glass outrolls, and enclosures. Enjoy the show.
Well, a little bit back to the normal part of ant keeping. How have you evolved over the time of learning to use hibernation? Is there any how you clean them today with a vacuum and stuff like that? How have you evolved with your techniques over the time?
So I found problems and then I found solutions to those problems. And so it's like I'm like, all right, with a vacuum, for example, it's like, okay, I gotta open this thing. Chances are some ants might escape or whatever. Even with the barrier on, you might have that one that just somehow walks on top of water and just manages to just pass the barrier somehow. And so what I do is I use a vacuum, and it's much faster than going in with tweezers and doing the one by one, pulling out of like the trash and stuff. So use a vacuum, especially it's really helpful with bigger colonies where you're feeding like 20 roaches a day. And so it's like you feed them the roaches and any exoskeletons left, you just go with the vacuum really quick, 5 seconds, you got it all, and then you can feed them again instead of taking like 5 minutes to individually pick out each roach. And in most cases, those roaches are split into like even smaller pieces because the ants got to dig inside of it to get everything that's inside. So they make a mess in doing so. But yeah, so the problem with it was just taking too long. And so I was like, you know what? Heck, I'm using a vacuum, little mini vacuum, tape a piece of tubing to it, and then use that tubing to focus exactly where I want to suck up the trash. That way I'm not sucking up a bunch of ants in the process. And then what was the other thing?
Just generally, if there's anything else with moving ants or feeding or anything you've changed over the time.
Yeah, moving ants for sure. And it depends on the colony, the species, how big it is. Most of the time now, I move my mainly with honeypot ants. I'll just move them manually. Like you can't really get repletes to move on their own. They can move, but it's mainly just up and down. They don't really like to drag their abdomens all that much along the floor, and so you sort of have to like pick them up by their thorax or by their abdomen, or use like a Q-tip and have them grab onto that, and then move them manually into the new nest. With carpenter ants, same thing, move them manually if they're big enough. But if it's a colony that's like really big and I don't know for sure that I can get them to move, like Phaedoli, for example, they're quick to pick up and move. Like they won't question at all. Once they find slightly better nesting area, they're gonna pick up and move to that place. And so, like when moving my Phaedoli rhea, it was super simple. I just attached a tube, shine light on top of it, and then moved them. Speaking of which, I think that one will be a Snapchat episode on moving. Like that's the first one.
Snapchat.
Yeah, Snapchat.
You're everywhere, man.
Yeah, I got to deal with that. So it's gonna be like one episode a week. I think is what we got to do. But yeah. So just shining a light on top of it, and then getting those ants to move from one nest to another. It was super simple. But the majority of the time, I move them manually. However, I do recommend using the let the ants move on their own, especially for new ant keepers that don't necessarily know exactly what they're doing. Like even me, when I first started, I didn't know exactly what I was doing. You could you could accidentally crush the queen if you pick her up too hard. And depending on the species, even if it's with featherweight forceps, let's say you pick up a tiny, let's see what ants you guys got over there, like Lasius. Let's say you pick up the queen too hard, or when you try grabbing her, you end up like stabbing her abdomen and it rupturing. You don't want that happening. So just let the ants move on their own, especially if you're just beginning.
Yeah, it's very important to get the right equipment. If you if you can get the 3D printed, and there's so many different tweezers, and some of them are just a lot better to handling ants themselves. And I do agree. Today I'm a lot more. I want the ants to move naturally, but as soon as the queen is in there, let's go.
Yeah.
I let the queen move in, and once that's happened, then we can guess the rest of the colony moving a little bit quicker, because the queen is the only one I really want to make sure gets a stress-free journey.
Especially like the stragglers, like ants that just sit around in the old nest, not really doing anything, just keeping post, right? Making sure no one else moves inside the nest. So it's like you got to take those couple hundred ants and disconnect the nest, and then just dump them or sweep them using a brush into the outworld of the new nest. At least that's what I do.
I mean, I think we can talk a little bit about what is your favorite nest, because I've seen you use a lot of Tar Heel ants. You've also worked a little bit with Toronto, and just recently you did a video on the Ant Store Digfix nest, which inspired me to actually using my very old Digfix nest, and the ants actually use it. But what would you say is your favorite ant nest overall?
My favorite one, I gotta give credit to where credit is due. It's the Tar Heel ant nests. They work so well for ants, and it's I mean, like a lot of people ask me where I get like the little cave ant farms from. 'Cause that's what I call them. So they're like, where you get the cave ant farm from? And in the beginning, I used to feel free to say it. Like, yeah, I get it from Tar Heel ants. But now that I have an audience, and now that I do brand deals with other ant companies, it's sort of unfair to give someone else free publicity while the others are having to send a nest over. And to clear things up, because some people might think that I get paid for when people send me nests. As of now, I told like Toronto and I told Antcube straight up, like, I'm not gonna ask for any like physical money unless I know exactly what I'm doing on YouTube, unless I know how to get a YouTube video to get tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of views. I'm not going to ask for money because I'm still learning YouTube. And with this recent video that I posted, it's at like 60,000 views now. So I am learning. And me and my brother are progressing because he's my editor. That's who I hired as my editor.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
And so it's a little family business, which is awesome. And so he edits the long form videos for me. And then I just do the voiceover and do my due diligence in learning how to better storytell, how to better my my writing skills and writing the script for the video. And it's proven to help. I'm glad that I took the time to learn how to tell a better story and how to tell a better get a nice hook in the beginning of each story. And sometimes, and it's good to experiment. Like with my most recent short video, it didn't perform at all how I expected it. It performed relatively bad. And I was like, okay, well, now I'm going to see where people clicked off, and was it a result of the format, or was it a result of my storytelling, or was it a result of the amount of like clips that I had? Because I only really messed around with like a few clips. It wasn't really that many, like how I usually do. And so I'm going to take the knowledge that I learned from that and apply it to my next video and see what I can do to make that next video better. But I completely went out of tangent just here. Anyways, my favorite nests are Tar Heel ant nests.
Yeah, I mean, it got me inspired to ask another question, because I always love seeing your videos because the quality is just very, very crispy. Do you have like a phone lens, or I saw you just got a new camera, a proper macro lens, but what do you use on your normal TikTok shorts, everything?
Normally and occasionally. So I've had that camera since 2020. So like,
okay,
almost 3 years. Yeah, no, not new, but the lenses are new. The lenses, I didn't get those things until just late last year. And so I've been using my phone since the beginning of my whole like ant video making career. And most of the time when I do my shorts, it's on my phone. And I just either use the macro lens on the phone, or if I record in 4K, I use the 0.5. That way, I can sort of get a little bit closer with the phone. But yeah, most of it's just filmed on my phone, edited on my phone. And then recently, I've been testing to see if it's worth writing scripts for shorts, and in some instances yes, in some instances no. Like, it just depends on the video itself.
Yeah, I completely agree. The thing is also you can just of course I'm still in a very early testing, and I find them very random, and I find that if I have to spend time on my main focus is still kind of my main YouTube channel, and the shorts are kind of to boost that. And I find that you can use a lot of time on shorts, TikTok, all of that very quickly without really getting the same payout compared to if you just did it while just thinking of the script while you are kind of doing it. But yeah, one of the things I see you have done quite a few times, and people always rage about it, is how you do the cleaning. You just kind of open your Tahi lens. Now, of course, easy with the magnets, and the ants run all over the place. And I must say it's a very effective way of cleaning. But we have one who have asked, what escape prevention do you use? Because you, of course, put the Outworld in a box so the ants can escape, but they can't escape the box. But what kind of anti-escape do you use?
I use Fluon for it right now. It's I think it's just Biformica Fluon. But I might see if there's other options for Fluon where I can get it in a larger volume. But right now it's just Fluon. It seems to work for pretty much all the ants that I keep. And yeah, I initially, when I first started like changing the glass or cleaning the glass to my ant farms, when the colonies are smaller, I just did it on my carpet. The ants didn't really oftentimes the ants wouldn't even venture outside the nest, and if they did, it was like maybe 5 workers. And what I'd do, I'd just plug the nest entrance and then put them in the outworld so that they can't run back into the nest to then escape again, and so it was initially just that, and I was like, you know what, I don't want to do that with these bigger colonies, so I'm going to put them into a separate like tub and then suspend the nest to where they're sort of like not directly on the ground. That way I can like handle everything a little bit better. So with the honeypots, it was really easy, and then it was a little bit sketchy with the Texas bullet ants. I wore gloves to take the glass off and to even grab the ants with the tweezers because I did not want to get stung by those guys. I'd imagine it's pretty painful. So yeah, the Fluon barrier works really well with the ants that I have.
Yeah, have you been stung by any of your ants?
I've been stung by fire ants. I've been the worst one that I've been stung by. It's between Asian needle ants, which I don't currently keep, and the graceful twig ant. Those two have pretty painful stings. I want to say the Asian needle ant was worse, but probably not by much. Both the needle ant and the twig ant's sting was pretty painful. Not enough to really make a grown man cry, but just enough to where it's like, ow, okay, I respect you. I will not mess with you, and be sure to make sure that you're not on the lid of the container when I go to do a feeding, because that's exactly what happened. It was on the lid of the container. I didn't see it, and when I put the container down, it fell on my leg and stung me. And dude, it hurt. But now I know what not to do next time I go to feed these guys.
Yeah, you learn as you go along. I actually haven't been stung yet, but when I had my Harpagnathus venatus, I sure gave them a lot of respect with their jumpiness and the aggressiveness.
Oh my, dude! They jump pretty far. Those guys, from what I hear.
Yeah, I mean the thing is they don't really jump; they just teleport. They just 1 second they're here, and then they're just over here. You can't really see the jump. It's just boom, they're over here.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah. But it is really just reading the ants, because most of the time what I found out was that they were actually very timid, and they were just very curious ants, and they were not really aggressive unless they knew it was something they could handle. And like you also say, it's just about respecting the ants and seeing what are they doing, what do you want to do with them, and what is the overall goal. Now we're going into a question now where it really depends where in the world you're from. Here in Europe, we don't really do that much live feeding, but I know talking with Casey and talking with other people from the United States, it's very different, and that's That's something I really had to discuss with a few people back when I initially started, because it's very different around the world what you think of this. But what are your thoughts about live feeding insects?
Honestly, so long as the colony, because when I first started doing it, it was like no one really cared. But when more and more when I started to grow in TikTok, that's when people like started to like form this whole little like group against me. I was like, what's going on? And honestly, it didn't really affect me negatively at all. I did take some advice from people, and I was like, you know what? Let me step down from feeding my ants live food. But as a year, like it's been maybe a full year now since I've last live fed anything crazy like a centipede or whatever. Like I'll give my ants live roaches every now and again because they can handle it, and it's a lot less work on my behalf. I don't have to crush each roach head individually, and sometimes I'll just freeze the roaches or whatever. But my focus, right? I don't focus all that well, so I'll completely forget about the roaches, and they'll be like little ice blocks by the time I remember that. Oh yeah, I gotta feed these ants. So oftentimes I just take the roaches out of the roach bin and just give it to my ants, and they'll take care of it in like 20 minutes. The roaches are gone and being processed. I don't find too much of a problem until I noticed that some of the people that I was like influencing into getting into ant keeping, that they were asking if it's okay if they feed their ants a spider, and it's like a queen with 5 workers. I'm like, uh-oh. Yeah. I made a mistake because I didn't tell when I was doing these live feeding videos. I'm not telling everyone, don't feed your ants live food unless they have so and so amount of workers, right? They're just what they're getting from the video is that, oh, I can get an ant colony and feed them almost anything. And that's what I didn't see. That was completely on me. I didn't think about that before going into it. And so now when like if anybody asks me, I don't really get that anymore because I haven't live fed in a little while. Not saying that I won't, but I haven't really gotten many questions about whether or not they should feed their ants a spider or whatever. But whenever I do get asked, what should I feed my ants? If it's live, it's definitely something like fruit flies, something that can almost never go wrong. And so it's just like fruit flies. And ants, a lot of the time, at least from what I see, most of my ants enjoy hunting fruit flies. The small little bugs, and super easy to catch, super soft bodied, and especially with like honeypots, they just chase them, catch them, spray them with formic acid, and then they're done for. They just bring it inside, feed it to the queen and larva, and then it's pretty much it for dinner for them. But I feel like it is still a highly debatable topic, and I do understand why.
Yeah, I really respect how you actually you saw that people started. That's what I was personally very scared of, that people got inspired to do similar things. And again, if you have a colony that can handle it personally, I'm on the side that I can't deny I've live fed as well. I mainly do it without recording and just kind of see what the ants do, because I'm scared that people will go, oh no, you cannot do that, and get the whole movement after myself. So I can't deny I've also done it a little bit.
Yeah.
But again, it's the important thing is doing it with a massive colony and not with a tiny colony, and that's where, especially young people, if they get inspired, that they may do the wrong things that can hurt more than do good.
When I first did it, it wasn't, and when I was watching, because I'd watch every so often a video or podcast that would say something about like the We Don't Approve movement in regards to me, like does he find joy feeding his ants? Like I'm not insane. I want to get that out of the way. What I saw when I did it was, okay, let's see how this species of ants goes about taking on a spider. For example, when I first gave that big-headed ant colony, I no longer have them because they ran out of water one day, and I wasn't there to give them the water, so they completely dehydrated and died. But when I was first giving them like live food, I think it was mealworms or a spider. But when it came to the spider, they didn't know what to do with it at first. Then after a little while, they sort of understood it. And then it wasn't until like the 3rd or 5th feeding that I gave them a spider again that it was really quick. They sort of picked up on it and knew exactly what to do in regards to having a spider. So it didn't take them nearly as long to take down the spider. So I started giving them even more spiders. And so instead of just having a bunch of minors in the outworld, they would already have a bunch of majors ready for whenever I put spiders in. And so they sort of kind of, I don't know, learned in a way to know whenever there's a spider in it now, it shouldn't take nearly as long to dismember it. And they, instead of just chasing the spider, they pinned it down, had majors chew at the legs, and then once the legs were off, the spider couldn't really go anywhere. And it was the same thing with the centipede. The wasp was a little bit crazy. I didn't know how hard wasp exoskeletons were until that day, because I had I think it was when I had to cut the wasp abdomen in half. And dude, that was the hardest thing to do. It wouldn't the exoskeleton of the wasp was insanely hard. It was really hard to even get a grip of it. And it was, I don't know, wasps just have some weird superpower where they cannot be ripped apart easily. It's crazy. So I probably won't ever feed my ants wasps again. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say for that, I guess.
Yeah, and I feel like to round the topic up, I feel like live feeding is something that you should just be aware of what you're doing and who you're sharing it to. And again, that's what you have also explained. And again, I know it's very different from the ant keepers around the world how you act. And again, I can't say don't live feed because I have done it myself, and it is different following the workers actually, reacting differently. But yeah, I feel like we've covered this topic pretty well. You've also talked a little bit about the We Don't Approve movement. This was a movement that was targeted towards stopping live feeding and also stopping people using Jill Nest. But I think the movement, at least on the Jill Nest side, became a little bit wrongly represented because they mainly just said, "Oh, don't use Jill Nest. Why are you dumb?" instead of more educational. But I mean, that's what happens. And again, if you influence the wrong people, they may not understand the initial purpose. And again, the thing with ant keeping is it's people in all ages. I have Danish parents contacting me saying, I have a 4-year-old child who just got his first ant. And I'm like, his first ant queen. I'm like, okay. Not sure how much excitement he will get out of that first ant queen, but they can get a lot because they have a different mindset. But if you also have these small kids that just want to see the world burn, and those told the wrong things will make the world burn. So yeah. So like we discussed earlier today, you have quite a massive following with multiple videos going crazy viral and all of this. But do you have a special achievement you feel like was your biggest achievement, both within ant keeping or just within all of your social medias?
There was a lot of achievements. I don't know if I have a biggest just yet, or one that I feel super proud of. Like hitting 100,000 on YouTube was awesome and amazing. But I don't know. I felt like YouTube Shorts almost. In the beginning, I did. Now, not so much. But I felt like it almost cheated it because it seemed just I grew too fast. Like I was like, oh, okay. I hit 100,000. It was really awesome. I got a little silver play button and all, but it just didn't feel well deserved. Like I felt like I should have worked harder. But it's coming back to haunt me because now it's taking even longer to get past that 100,000 milestone. But I'm understanding YouTube a little bit more, and so it's becoming a little easier, but also you're learning more things. You're like, okay, I got to put even more work into it, which is always awesome. It's always good to put more work into something that you're very passionate about. But the most, I think, most achievements was really just seeing how many people I sort of brought into ant keeping. I don't have a set number, but I always get DMs all the time of people saying that I got them into ant keeping. And when I went to Animal Con, I met a few fans there. It was awesome. It was the first time I ever met fans in person And it was overall a really, really amazing experience. And then I got to meet Ants Canada too, and somehow, or actually, no, we'll save that for when you ask that question. But
Oh, yeah, we can take
um,
it now. We can take it now because
we can talk about it now.
yeah, because
Okay.
you two actually made a video together on his channel. How
Yeah.
did all of that happen?
So in the beginning, when I saw him walk in, he was all dressed up, all nice. He had a suit and tie. He had his work crew with him, his manager and his filmmaker, and it was or his videographer, and it was just really cool to see this guy roll up. And I was like, that's him. That's the Ants Canada. That's Mikey Bustos. No way. In my head, and so I'm thinking that I'm like, all right. Whenever it comes to time to meet him, I'll meet him. I'll introduce myself to him. And so it came to that time, and so here's the funny part. For context, he knew who I was, but he didn't know how I looked, right? And so when it came time to meeting him, I guess initially he saw me as like maybe like a super fan or something like that, because a lot of other people were lined up to meet him, and when I introduced myself to him, and I guess he saw like the red tag, or I showed him the red tag, and he realized it was Lights Camera Rants. He was like, "Oh, it's you, Lights Camera Rants." I was like, in my head, I'm like, "Oh, he knows me. He knows of me. This is amazing." And so literally within the first minute that we're talking, he offered to do a collab, and I was like, that's perfect, because I literally caught an ant colony like a few days ago, and it was that twig ant colony that I was talking about earlier, and it was all really improv, with no script whatsoever. It was all improv, so it wasn't the most high production of video, but it was an amazing experience to be able to film, to be able to film and record a video with the Ants Canada. It was awesome. It was amazing and a privilege to be able to do so. It was funny because like I showed up to his what was it, villa, because he at the hotel we were staying at, he was in the villa side, and so he said, "Yep, meet us here." And so I went to his villa with the ants, with my little light that I had, and then he had his huge camera that he was filming with, a huge Canon camera with the macro lens and stuff that he was filming with, and so we filmed the video, or we filmed the clips that we needed to do, and then we did a little voiceover, and then that was it. And then we went to like the little after party afterwards, and it was really cool to see those people and meet them IRL for the first time.
Yeah, it must. Yeah, it's a dream that you have lived from my side. It must have been amazing. How was he in real life? Was he just a casual guy? Well, what was he like? I know it's not a podcast about him, but yeah. While we're on the topic,
No. I appreciate it. It's awesome to talk about other people too. He was super chill, super down to earth person, amazing dude to hang out with. And I mean, he did it. I wasn't there for when he did his Ants Canada speech because I had my own panel to do, but he got to do his little speech, or it was rather long speech, not really speech, but like I guess a talk, right? He got to do this one talk, which I guess must have been really cool to see. I'm sad I wasn't able to see it because I was on my own panel, but he's a super down to earth person, super chill, amazing guy, and I hope to meet him again in the future.
yeah, that's definitely a dream of mine as well. What talk were you in?
I was in. So the first one that I was in was it was one of the main stage where we were talking about short form. So it was me and a few selected creators talking about short form content and how we grew on it and such. So the first day, it was 3 days. First day was career day, so we talked everything about social media. And then the last 2 days were like hobbyist days, right? So about animals in general. And the ones that I was a part of were in regards to bugs, right? So they just generalized it. So I was with a bunch of other tarantula keepers and stuff. So we talked about tarantulas and ants. Ants Canada was in a few, and like 2 other ones that I was with. So it was really cool because we were it was like two ant keepers sitting next to each other, and then like three to four just tarantula keepers on the other side, and so we were pulling at each other's legs. It was awesome. And then yeah, it was the whole event was just super cool. It was cool that he literally flew halfway across the world to participate in it.
Yeah, that's it's just an amazing event. I would love to go there one day. But also just a small. I think it's a 12-hour flight or something for me. So just almost next door, right? Almost.
Right. Yeah.
Talking about the future, do you have any future plans within your ant keeping? Of course, you've talked a little bit about maybe going towards some college and different stuff, but do you have any like future massive setups with your leaf cutters, or I really want to get my hands on that species, or anything not that long term?
So near future, or well, I can't say
Yeah.
near future. Hopefully within the next year, at least, we'll refer to that as near future. I hope to get a new leaf cutter ant set up. I'm already talking to some people that I met in Florida at the event, and they're planning on helping construct a leaf cutter ant setup. It's not going to be the biggest. It's going to be like maybe like 5 feet long, 5 feet high, or something like that. And then like 18 inches in width. And so we're gonna do that, have that set up, and it's gonna be like a 3-chamber, 12 by 12 chambers. At least this is the plan. This is just a sketch. 3 12 by 12 chambers connected to each other's via acrylic tubing. And so they're gonna have 2 chambers, or not 2 chambers, 2 tunnels leading from the outworlds to the main nest, or to the first fungus chamber. That way they have one tube to bring leaves in, and the other tube to bring trash out, and then into the little garbage can that I'll have set up for them. And it's gonna be mainly pretty much like all the chambers in the big foraging area. It's gonna be completely made out of glass, and it's gonna be like it's gonna have some aluminum and stuff on it, because it's gonna have its own shelving spot. It's gonna look almost like a fish tank setup, right? Where you have it on like its own little desk or stand, rather. But underneath the stand, instead of having like a sump, it's gonna be just 3 fungus chambers that are a foot and like a foot cube, right? There's 3 of those, and so I think that's about as big as I'll have them. That's all I really want. I don't want anything too big, because they're gonna get out of control if I get them any bigger than that. And so I'm gonna be content with that. They're gonna be in one area of my room, and hopefully they won't be able to escape.
You say hopefully after they escaped in the past.
Yeah, they've escaped before. I told you I told you one time, but before that they've escaped like twice, 2 or 3 times before. But they were pretty minor escapes. The most recent one, where I wasn't even home for it, they had literally chewed through the plaster and escaped through the watering area where I would water their nest. And so there were like an inch like thick line of ants. I went several feet across to one side of my room, one corner, and what me and my brother believe they were doing is they were bringing all their dead and some of their trash as well out, and just piling it in one corner of my room. So they just found a spot that they could store trash in my room, and so we had to vacuum that up as well. But it was pretty contained, most of it. There was a few that slipped underneath the door and into my brother's rooms or whatever, but that was the biggest escape. We lost about 1,500 ants that day.
Yeah, they just go nuts when they escape.
Yeah.
One of my first smaller escape was really such a funny escape story. I had them on the recording table. So I have this like designated area where I record the ants, and this was an old prototype of our cushion nest. He sells like built fungus chambers, and in that old version there was like a probe cap, so you could stick a probe in to measure the heat and the humidity. And the ants had pulled that probe out, so it was just laying inside the container just on the side, and they had escaped. And what they had done was they had gone in and emptied all of that trash, so it was hard for me to go in and remove the trash because it was a prototype and it had some flaws, so I couldn't quite come in and remove the trash.
Oh.
But what they then did was they had just thrown the trash over the edge of the table, so all the way along the bottom.
What?
Yeah, so there was just a thin line of trash on the bottom of my table, of the recording table. No trash on the table, and the ants were just cleaning out the nest. They were just, no, we just need to clean a little bit. Someone haven't cleaned, so let's clean for him. It's just such a weird escape.
Dude, oh, Yeah, Ada are fun and weird at the same time. Like when it comes to their trash, I had to train mine to put their trash in the trash can because if not, they'll just store it in their nest along with their fungus, just
Yep.
underneath their fungus. And since I think there might be a few species. I know Ada, what is it? Ada columbica, they take their trash outside the nest. But from what I know, most Ada, and I could be wrong here, but from what I've heard, most Ada have their trash cans in underground chambers designated for that. So they'll fill that chamber up and then just block it off with dirt. And that's how they take out their trash. You just hiding it in underground chambers. So Texana does the same. And so I'm assuming that's what they were trying to do was have a different chamber for their trash, but it was also the same chamber as their fungus chamber, so it didn't really mix all that well. But we fixed that and no longer have to deal with dead fungus inside of the actual living fungus chamber.
My Ada are weird. They have fungus along, like you say, along the bottom of some of their biggest fungi. That's just trash. Then at one point they had the trash chamber between one fungi and another fungi. They had the trash chamber in the middle. But now, like you say, they don't want to take it outside because there's no trash in the outworld itself. They take the deads out there, but no trash. But what they do is, it's really fascinating to follow. But they are quite annoying because if I don't empty that trash chamber in time, they will just put trash on the fungi, and the fungus may not take damage at first. But if I mean, one time I was a little bit lazy and was just interested in seeing what happened, and they just destroyed a fungi by filling it with trash.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was not too good. So what I now do is I just take the box with that it's a very simple plastic container that they have trash in, empty it in the massive outworld. I have my whole table is an outworld. I empty it there, and I connect it up again. And that way the colony keeps their fungi chambers free of trash as they just put the trash down there. But if it feels like 25% or above, they'll start putting trash all over the place again. So I have to empty it like every third day or so to make sure they don't want to hurt the other part of the fungus.
Is it possible for you to? How much trash do they take out a day? Do you know?
About like 2 or 3 spoons of trash, I would say, in the trash chamber. Like a good spoon, 2 or 3 of them.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's quite a bit.
I guess what you can do is take a sizable cup or container that can fit into the outworld. This is just how I did it. You don't have to do it this way, but I found cleaning it a lot more easier. And you don't have to really detach anything. You're just lifting up. You're the trash guy, right? You're just lifting up the trash can essentially, and then dumping it, and then putting it back for them to refill it throughout the week. And so you get a container, you fill it with dead fungus that they've already thrown out, and you remove all the other places that have dead fungus. That way there's no smell of dead fungus left near the ant nest. And so wherever they smell dead fungus now, they'll move any trash to that area, and that will become their new designated like trash area, their dead fungus area. And so all you got to do is wait till it fills up, you take it out, you dump it out, and now that you don't completely clean it out, because you still want to keep that smell of dead fungus in there. And then over time, you'll notice that, okay, they train themselves to just climb up this trash can, dump the fungus in, they leave, go get more trash, and do the repeat, rinse and repeat, do the same thing over and over again until it's refilled up again. And no real disconnecting of any sort. You might lose a few ants in that transaction, but I'm sure you do even throwing away fungus now, because there's always fungus in those, or there's always ants in those fungus chambers, rather.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot less hectic having to because you don't have to disconnect tubing or anything. And the outworld stays clean for the most part. So long as you don't let that thing overflow, you're gonna have a clean looking outworld, and you don't have to worry about disconnecting any fungus chambers or any fungus chambers.
Now that is actually quite a clever method because I have a lid on the box. I can just remove the lid and take the cup out if I had a cup in there, and then I could just hoover the escapees and put them back. That is actually something I may very well try next time I have to empty the trash and rebuild everything. But back to you with one final official question in the script. You today have 2 YouTube channels. Now, I saw on an old post that the secondary channel was meant for shorts, but now there's just Lights Camera Ants 2. Do you have a plan for the two channels? Is there two separate ideas, or do you have any difference between them now?
So originally it was supposed to be just a shorts channel. However, I was talking to one of the people that manages like the Snapchat thing. And they have some connections with people that work with YouTube or whatever. And they just recommended I just keep everything in one channel. Especially now that YouTube Shorts was planning on like switching it up to where now you get paid for it. So this coming February, starting February 1st, I'll start getting paid for shorts. And so will some other people if they're monetized on YouTube already. And so they were like, yeah, just have it on one channel. You already have so-and-so, or you already have so many subscribers on that one. I was like, all right. So I don't really post on the second channel anymore, despite it having like 10,000 subscribers. But if I do post anything, it might just be like scrapped videos. But this is just me thinking out loud here. So I don't know what I'll post. Let's say something doesn't make the cut for a full YouTube video, because I want my regular YouTube videos to be like 8 minutes long, roughly. That way I can optimize like ad revenue and be able to do this full time eventually. But if the video doesn't have enough, if there's not enough story for the video, I probably won't upload it to the main. But again, it just depends. I might not. It really does. So we'll see. If the main just continues to blow up, then I'll just stay focused on the main. I might even just forget the second channel overall. I don't know what I'll do with it. If something does happen to where I'll have a reason to post on there, then I'll post. But otherwise, I don't have any plans for now to post on it.
All right, I feel that was a very clear answer. I've also multiple times thought of just mixing my two channels together, but I have the same kind of things that I want to make high quality on the main channel. And at the moment, my shorts are not high quality. I would like to make them better quality by buying a macro lens for my phone and doing everything a little bit better, and then do a bit better shorts on the main channel. But I do like boring live streams. I release the podcast here on the extra channel as well as audio places. Just because I don't want to spam people who not interested in the podcast. So that's why I personally have two channels. But I could definitely understand your response. But I want to say that has been it for this interview. This talk with you, Lights Camera Ants, and I want to say thank you for guesting the Ant Pod. I've really enjoyed it. Last time we talked again, that was we talked on the Formicast panel.
Yeah.
Easter panel back in 2000, I want to say 21 Easter back then. So we haven't talked in quite a time. And of course, you also joined back when the Holofish show came out. You also joined with talking a little bit about leaf colors at the Holofish show a long time back. But yeah, for all those who want to find you, I just want to ask, where can you be found now that you're also on Snapchat? What are all your social medias now?
Yeah, I'm pretty much found on every platform under the tag @LightsCameraAnts. And I think for Snapchat, we're still in the works for the show right now. We got the first episode done, second episode's in the works, but it's not technically published just yet. But we do have the okay from Snapchat to start making and publishing videos there. So I guess if you see this a year later or some months later, then the Snapchat should be up there already. And if you type in Lights Camera Ants, you should find it.
That sounds. I love how you expand kind of all over the place. My focus are just TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at the moment.
You should expand too. I think it just takes a few extra minutes to repost a TikTok onto Facebook or onto Instagram or
exactly
onto any other social media platform.
It may definitely be worth the hassle if things go viral on, and again, like we discussed earlier, so many different platforms with so many different types of algorithms. So videos may do very different. But once more, I want to say thank you for joining, and I want to say thank you, the listener, for listening in here at the Ant Pod. The Ant Pod releases new episodes every Wednesday, and care guides once every few weeks. And if there's anything you want to hear about, any interviews you want to hear, anyone you want to talk with or listen about, send a message to the AntPod Instagram. With that, you will hear more from us at the AntPod next week.